Hi, I'm C Lyon. I am the creator, curator, tour director of the C Lyon Sculpture Garden, poet of Poets Park, and head of the maintenance department. I'm going to tour my garden. You come we'll see and see. Welcome to nuclearism. I call my work nuclearism for a couple of reasons. I spent 4 years in the United States Air Force, and the last couple of those years around B-52 bombers, so I saw the destructive power of just one of those mighty, marvelous marvels. I was also a school teacher. I took duck and cover drills in the dirty, dusty, dreary gymnasium cellar steps with my students, where the civil defense stores were stored. So I've had the nuclear mushroom madness cloud in a hovering pattern in my green Irish mind my entire adult life. So hence nuclearism. However, it's a poor artist that can only create one ism. I have about a dozen more. I'll point them out as we go along. I love abstract art, but I really don't like art for art's sake. I love abstract art with meaning. For abstract art without meaning is like a stream without water. It's dull, boring, and dry. But that's just my artistic philosophy. Now, one of the symbols I use is the American Science Bulletin clock, and one of their more, known as the Doomsday Clock. However, because I'm an eternal optimist, I use one of their more optimistic times. So if you abstract this clock, it would be, that hand would be pointing to the 12, and this would be pointing to quarter of, and that would be quarter of 12. And that's one of their more optimistic times. Every sculpture I have in this garden has a clock, because we're all sentient beings in time. So let's continue on our journey. My favorite president said, "Ask not what your country could do for you," because we know the rest of it. So I kind of hit on the idea. I always wanted to do one little itsy bitsy teeny weeny thing for my country, and then I hit on the idea of a sculpture garden, and then a patriotic sculpture garden, and I thought perhaps I could build the largest sculpture garden in America. At the time, I thought the largest sculpture garden in America was the Storm King Art Center in Newburgh, New York. At the time, they had 125 pieces. So I decided that I would double that. So this is my 250th piece of sculpture. And I was happy as a rabbit in a spring carriage patch because I thought I had the largest sculpture garden in America. And then the internet came out. I found out that the Brookgreen Sculpture Garden south of Myrtle Beach had 500 pieces. And I said, well, perhaps I could get to 500 pieces. So I welded on year after year, welded on, and eventually I came to 500 pieces. I go on the internet again, and lo and behold, they have 700 pieces. Wow, 700 sculptures. But I welded on year after year, and I eventually came up to 700 sculptures. And I go on the internet again, and lo and behold, Brookgreen Sculpture had 2,000 sculptures. So not only will they have the largest sculpture garden in America for a long time, it's also the oldest sculpture garden in America. So if you happen to be down to Myrtle Beach, by all means, go south a few miles and check it out. It's a wonderful, marvelous place. So it was a nice goal to shoot for. So let's continue on our artistic journey. This is homage to Johnson's list, Jimmy Johnson. He was in the Korean War, and I'm always interested in that because I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to have the United States Air Force send a 19-year-old functionally literate kid to Yeongdeunpo, South Korea in the 5th Mule Train Squadron. And it was there during that year I taught myself to read. My imagination service discovered a raison d'etre and was flashed all in 1 year. Johnson spent 38 months in a prisoner of war camp eating rotten kimchi. And during that time, 496 of his cohorts died. And he had the presence of mind to take down the name, rank, and serial number and the serial number and the DOD of all 496 of those names. When the war was over and the armistice was signed, the commandant started searching barracks for contraband to make him a war criminal. And when he got around Johnson's area, he noticed there was a plank in the wall that was loose. He tore it out, and behind that plank was those 496 names printed on his stationery. Johnson would have been au revoir if the war wasn't over and the armistice wasn't signed. So the commandant was so irritated, he put everybody out, told everybody out of the barracks, and he burned it down. And Johnson pretended to look as crestfallen as a child without his dream Christmas present. But wait, there is more. He goes across the DMZ, sits down with the debriefer, and he says to the debriefer, can I use your scissors? The debriefer looks at him a little puzzled and pulls around. Yeah, here, by all means, use these scissors. And Johnson reaches down and brings out a shaving kit and takes out a toothpaste tube. And he took out the toothpaste tube and he took those scissors and he goes click, click, click. clicks off the end of that toothpaste screw. Click, 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 dumps up the side. Click, 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 cuts it open, the top off. And then he opens up and out pops those 496 names printed in a little itsy bitsy teeny print on cigarette paper. He had the president's mind to do 2 lists. Incroyable! So, and it's, Johnson says to the debriefer, will you notify the next of kin? The debriefer says, pas de problem, we'll take care of that for you. But wait, there is more. In the year 2000, Johnson retires. He goes to the Army Archives, looks up the list, and they have him. They saved him. It was there, but they didn't notify the next of kin. He spent 10 years of his earthly existence at his own dime and his own time and tracked down those 496 descendants and gave them closure on their loved one. What a heart he had. I am a sucker for stories of ordinary people who do extraordinary things. I have dozens of them on my artwork, but I'm only going to tell you 2 more. Let's continue on our journey. This is my homage to Gertrude Tompkins Silver. She was from New Jersey, and she had a stuttering problem, and she fell in love at a young age with a pilot. And he took her up in a plane one time, and she was addicted. Unfortunately, he died. He went to join the RAF, and he was KIA'd before America got in the war. So when the government called for WASP, which means Women's Army Service Patrol, she was one of the 25,000 applicants that signed up, and they only took 1,200. But she graduated with flying colors, went to advanced flying school, and ended up flying the most advanced plane in World War II, the P-51 Mustang. The first time she went up and came down, she lost her stuttering and never stuttered again the rest of her life. Halfway through the war, she gets married. She was one happy flying Mustang lady. And then one day, she's flying to Los Angeles Airport, stops at the airport, and tells the mechanics there that there's something wrong with the plane. It's not functioning correctly. And she explained it in detail, and the mechanics said, okay, we'll take a look at it, lady. So they took a look at it for a while, and they came back. There's nothing wrong with your plane. It's in your head. You're out of here. So she took off for Palm Springs. And 4 or 5 days later, when she didn't show up, they thought they would go looking for her. And when they couldn't find her, the powers that be decided that she flew the plane to Mexico, was put on a Japanese submarine, and all during the war, everybody thought she committed treason. Of course, after the war, they found that that was not true. So, but wait, there's more. A couple of years ago, a Silicon billionaire decided he would grid Santa Monica Bay and look for her. And they found a plane there, and they were as happy as Google startups. But when they sent down a mechanic and they sent down a diver and with a camera, they found out that that wasn't a P-51 Mustang. But wait, there's more. About 6 months ago, I'm watching the military channel, and sure enough, another billionaire was searching in the mountains, and he found a plane. And he sent up a P-51 Mustang expert. Took him 7 days to get there, and he wasn't there 10 minutes. And they found out that that wasn't a P-51 Mustang either. I mean, they were as unhappy as bad blood investors. So, so of the 1,200 WASPs in World War II, around 40 were killed, and Gertrude Tompkins Silver is the only one that is still missing in service today. And a footnote, WASPs had to buy their own uniforms, they were never promoted in rank, they had to pay for their own funeral, and they weren't even considered veterans till 1970, in the early 70s. So let's continue on our artistic journey. This is my homage to Captain Chaplain Kapaun. He was in the Korean War, and when his company was being overrun, instead of retreating with his company, he decided he would stay with the wounded. He actually carried one back to the POW camp. And during the time that he was in that camp, he was the dispenser of hope. He was always dispensing hope because he knew if you give up hope, you're dead within three days. He was also the medicine man. He would make placebos out of goat dung, but his main forte was he was the food stealer. He would go out at night underneath the barbed wire. He would steal food out of the garden, out of the garbage cans, and cave it back, and he would give it all to his cohorts. And he also defied the commandant by saying Mass. Mass on Christmas, Mass on Easter, and holidays. So the commandant commandant had a Stalin heart. And anytime one of the troops got sick or was about to die. They put him in a death cabin to make sure they died by themselves. So the captain was really excited when Captain Chaplain Kapaun got sick. And when he couldn't walk anymore, they put him on a stretcher and they put him in a death cabin. Normally the people in the death cabin, the death cabin died within 2 or 3 hours. Chaplain Kapaun lasted there 3 days before he expired. But his cohorts were so excited and impressed by what he did during that time that he was in the prisoner of war camp, that there were 6 of them, I believe, and they hounded the Defense Department. They hounded their congressmen and the senators year after year, decade after decade after decade after decade. And in 2014, President Obama gave Chaplain Kapaun the Congressional Medal of Honor. Only one of 3 out of 30,000 chaplains have been in the military to receive that honor. And I believe there was one in the Civil War. I know there's one in the Vietnam War, and Chaplain Kapaun. But wait, there is more. I was reading the New York Times a while ago, and I see this book about this chaplain in the Korean War, and I started reading, and sure enough, come to find out, Chaplain Kapaun has two miracles attributed to him. You know what happens if you have 2 miracles attributed to you? You can be a saint. So lo and behold, Pope Francis, a beatitude, he is up for sainthood. But we don't know how, we won't live long enough to see him become a saint, because I guess the minimum is 180 years. It costs $500,000. And so I'm just sure that he will be a saint someday. But wait, there is more. I was watching the Rachel Maddow show at my girlfriend's house recently, and at the end of her show, she starts talking about this Korean captain. And the more she talked about him, I just knew that was Chaplain Kapaun. I'm standing up and telling my girlfriend, it's Chaplain Kapaun. Because you know, when you watch a Rachel Maddow show, it takes her a while to get to the point. And sure enough, at the end of the program, sure enough, it was Chaplain Kapaun, and they found his remains, and they were bringing him back to the States. And come to find out that his descendants are not allowing him to be buried in Arlington National Cemetery. They are going to bury him in Kansas City, and I understand that they're going to bury him in the same church that he participated in as a child. These here are Chaplain Kapaun's dog tags. I made my contribution to his foundation. I just hope that someday you can say it's Saint Chaplain Kapaun. Let's continue on our journey together. I am so lucky and so fortunate to live so near the Corning Museum of Glass Studio, the Murano of the West, one of the best teaching facilities in the United States today. And I've been taking classes there and blowing glass there for a number of years. And this is one of the series I make here. In this style here, I name all my series. In this style here, these are called Fusing Casuarina de la Jingles. I probably have, at the present time, at least 100 Fusing Casuarina de la Jingles in the garden. In this series here, these are called Cataroida tails. They're a blast. Cataroida tails are a blast to make. And if you pan around this area here, all this area here, when the sun is reflecting and refracting on all this glass, it's like 1,000 angels rays baptizing your eyes and entertaining your mind with peace, tranquility, and harmony. Let's continue on our journey. I want to introduce you to some more isms. Welcome to Casteism. I call this Casteism because this is cast glass on top. In this series here, these are called the Chaperoning de la Steminoids. And in the back of the Chaperoning de la Steminoid, I have created a mushroom, a glass mushroom. So what I do is I take all metal fiberglass and I wrap it around that glass mushroom, and I put it in a plasma cut hole, turn it 3 times, and hold it for a minute, and it hardens like steel. These are not coming out. In this series here, these are called Planarian dillagrapers. I have beaucoup Planarian dillagrapers. This is my most prolific series. So what I would like to do now, I'm going to introduce you to about 6 or 7 new isms. So let's continue on our journey together. I call this one here sepsism. This is called DTism. is bambooism. Hi, I'm lucky and fortunate enough to be collaborating with a well-known light and space artist from California, Connie Zier, who was a sculpture professor at Claremont University for 30 years. And when she retired, she moved east to be near her family. And at the present time, I probably have about 30 Zierisms on the land. And I would like to introduce you to Connie Zier. She is here with us today. And she's going to explain her prints to us.
So when I moved here, there really wasn't any place for me to do my large installations. So I started doing prints. And these are images of feathers that I placed on my printer and scanned, and then sent the image to Bay Photo, where they make metal prints. And I think these particular ones especially work well on Pepsi's sculpture because they are feathers, and they work well in nature.
And she's also my pity to me. Art and romance go really well together. It's just dazzling in your 80s. Let's continue on our journey together. Welcome to Arborism. This is one of my favorites. And all these sculptures here are in trees. I even have a long one here and a whole bunch of trees. That's called the Obama train. And as you're walking through here, it's like an extraterrestrial nuclear blossoming jardin with fleurs allure. And over here we have one more that's called stumperism, and in the back of that is ecologicalism, and that's my last ism. Welcome to my Poets Park. The price of admission to tour my sculpture garden, you have to listen to my singing, songwriting, guitar playing here in my Poets Park, cut out of this beautiful hemlock area. And one of the poems I recite here is my Ballad of John Fitzgerald Kennedy. He was my hero. And I was absolutely devastated when he was assassinated. I could not believe that anyone could assassinate such a magnificent, charismatic human being. And I was working my way through college instruction at that time, and on the new house I was working in, I wrote on the wall, I vow to write the Ballad of John Fitzgerald Kennedy, and hopefully in Paris. And as luck would have it, when I graduated from college, I ended up in Paris. I wrote the first stanza where Joyce wrote Ulysses, but I couldn't afford the coffee in Paris. So I ended up in an old Roman city called Narbonne. And in the middle of that city, they had a cafe called the Quatre Vingt Neuf Cafe. And every day at Pré Déjeuner, I would sit there and write stanza after stanza after stanza. I had hundreds of them. And over the years, I've condensed it down to 120 lines and put a Greek chorus to it. So here is my Ballad of John Fitzgerald Kennedy, still to this day, Moi's favorite president. The Ballad of John Fitzgerald Kennedy. The son of old Joe Kennedy was born in Boston, Mass., and bless he was a treasured lad with Irish captain class. In youth, he played on Plymouth Rock with his older brother Joe. In schools, he read of charging knights and books like Ivanhoe. He gravely tripped in Hitler's land when he was 23 and keyed why England slept. So when the cruelest, meanest noble war began, he linked the fleet to keep our nation free. Assigned to PT 109, his crew were told to press the ships in Blackett Strait and sink the Tokyo Express. While on patrol alone on triple the water, lonely Pacific night, to sea supplies from seeking through a Japanese destroyer play yay and saw this plywood boat and because he saved his men, kept them from the enemy, he won the Navy and Marine War for gallantry. Oh, the USA, the USA, the USA loved JFK. Yes, we did, oh, we did, how we did. And JFK, he loved the USA. Yes, he did, oh, we did, how we did. Love the USA. Yes, he did. Then he looked around our marvelous blue mighty marble mark and saw that it was Birch's bent, and dreamed that all he could do if only he were the president. But a Catholic never had the slightest, slimmest slice of a straw's chance. So went the scholar's myth. But after all the votes were won, he was our 35th. And his new frontiers were armed to fight the enemies of man. One to fabricate the hunger in our land. Offered to our hemisphere the army of our wealth and seeded plains with cores of peace to sugar high its health. made the Russian fleet retreat, retreat, retreat. The Cuban Missile Sites, and guaranteed that humankind would have its civil rights. And the moon, the moon, the moon. He torched the lunar race and watered well the will that beam, beam, beam to dream, dream, dream in space, in space. And he laughed the world and introduced his anti-testing plan. And over 90 leaders, legend, the first atomic ban. Oh, the USA, the USA, the USA loved JFK. Yes, we did, oh, we did, how we did. And JFK, he loved the USA. Yes, he did, oh, we did, how we did. Love the USA. Yes, he did. To walk around the Kennedy Mile became the rage of every age, and artists by the hundreds sketched the presidential stage. He served 1,000 days in Sailor Dallas with his wife, and while waving and sailing, hi, 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 up, up, up in Camelot, a mindless, mealy marksman with an axe took his life. For nation's love is not a vest against the shells of hate, because he left a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant dream. He heart broke every state, and a monument of tears were shed. The day waked an angel's way. Oh, the USA, the USA, the USA loved JFK. Yes, he did, oh, we did, how we did. And JFK, he loved the USA. Yes, he did, oh, we did, how we did. Love the USA. How we did. And he made ancient spirits rise, so surface once again our Father's thoughts of peace on earth, goodwill towards men. Because he ate for a fair state with unsurpassable time, eternal is his name. Because he flashed a whiter light, eternal is his fame. And because he gave his life, eternal is his flame. Voila, we have one more stop to make. That concludes our tour. If you happen to be traveling in the beautiful Finger Lakes region of New York State, better known locally here as Mark Twain Country, drop down at Seymour. And I'll show you my sculpture garden that I built the old-fashioned American way, with no help except for Michael B., no credentials, no money, and no encouragement. It'll only cost you an appreciation stone. So I'd like to leave you with the words of my old Irish grandfather, who used to say, "May you all be in heaven a half hour, for the devil knows you passed away."